I'm 87 years old, and if life has taught me anything, it's this. Most of the lessons that truly matter arrive far too late. When you're 40, you think you have time to fix mistakes, time to call old friends, time to take care of your health, time to tell people how much they mean to you. Time feels endless. At least that's what I believed. I was wrong. Very wrong. At 40, I was busy building a life, working long hours, paying bills, raising children, trying to get ahead. And like many people, I believed happiness was waiting somewhere in the future, just beyond the next promotion, the next paycheck, the next achievement, the next year. But now, sitting here at 87, I can tell you something that took me decades to understand. Life is not waiting for you in the future. Life is happening right now. And while you're busy preparing for tomorrow, today quietly disappears. If I could sit across from my 40-year-old self, if I could look him in the eyes, there are 7 things I would tell him immediately. Not because I'm wiser than anyone else, but because I learned these lessons the hard way. And I hope you don't have to. Lesson 1. Stop waiting for the perfect time. This may be the biggest mistake I ever made. I kept waiting until work became less stressful, waiting until I had more money, waiting until life calmed down, waiting until everything was finally in place. But life never calms down. There is always another problem, another bill, another responsibility, another reason to postpone what matters. I remember telling my wife, next year we'll travel. Then next year came, and I said the same thing again, and again, and again. Years passed, much faster than I expected. One day I looked in the mirror and realized I wasn't the young man making plans anymore. I was an old man wondering where all the years had gone. The perfect time never arrived. And that's because it doesn't exist. Life is happening in the middle of the chaos, not after it. If something matters to you, start now. Not someday, not next year, now. Because one day you'll discover something nobody tells you when you're young. The window stays open longer than you expect. Then suddenly, it doesn't. Lesson 2. Call your parents. More often. When I was 40, my parents were getting older, but I didn't really notice. To me, they still seemed permanent, like they would always be there. I was busy. Everyone is busy at 40. Career, children, mortgage, responsibilities. Whenever my mother called, I'd often say, I'll call her back tomorrow. Most of the time I did, but not always. And one day, there were no more tomorrows. The strange thing about losing your parents is that you never stop wanting them. Even at 60, even at 70, even at 87. There are still moments when something happens and your first instinct is to pick up the phone and tell them. Then reality returns, and you remember they're gone. The calls you postpone today become the conversations you miss forever tomorrow. If your parents are still alive, call them. Not because you have to, because one day you'll wish you could. Lesson 3. Stop sacrificing your health for money. At 40, I thought I was being responsible. I worked overtime. I skipped vacations. I ignored fatigue. I told myself I was doing it for my family. And in many ways, I was. But there was something I didn't understand back then. Every time I ignored my health, I was borrowing from my future. And eventually, the future sends the bill. I remember waking up one morning in my late 60s. My knees hurt, my back hurt, my energy wasn't what it used to be. And I kept asking myself, when did this happen? The truth? It didn't happen overnight. It happened one skipped walk at a time, one stressful year at a time, one ignored warning sign at a time. Young people think health is automatic. Older people know it's a privilege. If you're 40 today, listen carefully. Your body is keeping score, not to punish you, just to remind you later of the choices you're making now. Take the walk, get the checkup, sleep more, move your body, because one day you'll realize something shocking. Good health is not everything, but without it, everything becomes harder. Lesson 4. Spend more time with your children. Nobody tells you this when you're raising kids. The last time happens without warning. One day you pick them up and carry them. Then suddenly, you never do again. One day they ask you to play. Then one day they stop asking. One day they run into your room excited to tell you a story. Then one day they have their own lives, their own jobs, their own families. And all those ordinary moments you barely noticed become priceless memories. I wish I had understood that sooner. When I was 40, I was always rushing, always thinking about work, always planning tomorrow. And while I was busy planning the future, my children were growing up. And sometimes I look at old photographs now, and I don't remember the meeting I attended that week. I don't remember the project I was stressing about. But I remember their little faces, their laughter, the sound of their footsteps running through the house. At 87, I can tell you something honestly. Children don't stay young for very long. So put down the phone sometimes. Leave the dishes for later. Sit with them. Listen to them. Because one day you'll give anything to relive an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Lesson 5. Learn to forgive sooner. For many years I carried anger. Some of it deserved, some of it didn't. Old arguments, old disappointments, old wounds. I thought holding on to them made me strong. I thought forgiveness meant letting people off the hook. But age taught me something different. Most of the time, resentment hurts the person carrying it more than the person who caused it. I once spent nearly 10 years angry at someone. 10 years. Then one day I heard they were seriously ill, and suddenly all that anger seemed ridiculous. Not because what happened was okay, but because life is short, much shorter than we think. And many of the things we fight about today won't matter 5 years from now, maybe not even 5 weeks from now. Now, let me be clear. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing people to hurt you again. It doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Sometimes forgiveness simply means putting down a burden you've carried for far too long. And when you finally do, you realize how heavy it really was. At 87, I've learned this. Peace feels much better than winning arguments, and forgiveness is often the fastest path to peace. Lesson 6. Stop worrying about what other people think. If I could save my 40-year-old self from one exhausting habit, it would be this one. I worried far too much about other people's opinions. I worried about how successful I looked. I worried about whether people approved of my decisions. I worried about fitting in, being respected, being admired, being enough. And looking back now, I realized something almost funny. Most of the people I was trying to impress were too busy worrying about themselves to think about me at all. That's one of the great secrets of life. The spotlight you think is on you usually isn't. I remember buying a car I couldn't comfortably afford, not because I loved it, not because I needed it, but because I thought it would make me look successful. A few months later, nobody cared, except me. The payments remained, the stress remained, but the admiration I imagined, that never arrived. As we grow older, we begin to understand something liberating. You do not need everyone's approval to live a meaningful life. You don't need strangers to validate your choices. You don't need to explain every decision. You don't need permission to be yourself. At 87, I dress for comfort. I spend time with people I enjoy. I say no when I want to say no. And honestly, life feels lighter, much lighter, because freedom begins the moment you stop trying to perform for an audience that isn't paying attention. Lesson 7. Tell people you love them while you still can. Of all the lessons life taught me, this may be the most important. For years, I assumed people knew how I felt. I assumed my wife knew I loved her. I assumed my children knew I was proud of them. I assumed my friends understood how much they meant to me. And maybe they did. But now I wish I had said it more often. Because one day you discover something heartbreaking. There will be a final conversation, a final hug, a final visit, a final goodbye. And most of the time, you won't know it's the last one when it's happening. Life doesn't usually announce these moments. They simply pass. Then they're gone forever. I still remember the last conversation I had with my wife. At the time, it felt ordinary, completely ordinary. If I had known it would be the last one, I would have listened longer. I would have held her hand a little tighter. I would have said, "I love you," one more time. Maybe even 10 more times. That memory has stayed with me for years. Not because of what I said, because of what I didn't say. So if there's someone you love, tell them. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Because love expressed is never wasted, and love left unspoken often becomes regret. Final thoughts. At 87, people often ask me what I regret most, and they're usually surprised by my answer. I don't regret not making more money. I don't regret not buying a bigger house. I don't regret the promotions I missed. What I regret are the moments I rushed through, the people I assumed would always be there, the phone calls I postponed, the apologies I delayed, the years I spent worrying about things that never really mattered. You see, when you're young, life feels endless. At 40, you believe there will always be another year, another opportunity, another chance. But life moves quietly, and much faster than you think. One day, you're building your future. The next, you're looking back at it. And that's why, if I could leave you with one final thought, it would be this. Don't wait. Don't wait to be happy. Don't wait to forgive. Don't wait to call someone you love. Don't wait to take care of yourself. Don't wait to start living. Because the greatest mistake I made wasn't failing. It was believing I had more time. And if you're younger than I am today, you still have something precious. Time. Use it well. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Take care of yourself. And remember, the life you're waiting to live is already happening.